thank you for sitting in and to this 1 hour demonstration of not trying to tell you how to paint a watercolor. I'm going to try and let you know how I approach the watercolor meeting because I know this group is an elite group of watercolorists. And so, as I said to Anita yesterday, it's like preaching to the choir in many respects. But anyway, I'm going to try and get this in 1 hour, and we'll I'm just trying to make my screen a little bigger, that's all. Anyway, so I was debating what I wanted to paint today, and I thought I would go back to one of my favorite themes, which is a waterfall. And I just enjoy doing waterfalls because they offer interesting designs, interesting patterns, and so the waterfall I've chosen is one that I've painted a number of times. There's the photo reference for it. It's called the Coulange Falls, and if anybody has knows it or been there, you know how dynamic it is. I just made a quick little printed off a map. So we're down here. We're at the west end of Lake Ontario in Ancaster. And here's Toronto. Here's Ottawa over here. So about 75 miles just west of Ottawa, just north of the Ontario-Quebec border, you will find this Coulange Falls, or Chute Coulange, which is runs off of the Coulange River, which is a tributary to the Ottawa River, which of course ultimately goes out into the St. Lawrence. But anyway, if you haven't been there, I encourage you, if you're up in the Ottawa area, check it out and take your camera and your videos because it is such a beautiful falls. And I'm just going to quickly talk about the colors I plan to use. And I've got three primary colors working today: quinacridone gold, French ultramarine, which is a big blob right here, carmine down here. So I've got my yellow, my blue, and my red covered. And I've got one earth tone, burnt sienna today. So I can mix my secondary colors, which I do all the time. I don't buy green, I don't buy violet, although I have bought Winsor Violet in the past. I don't currently have it in my palette. And I can make orange too. So I have, don't tell Winsor Newton that because they want me to buy all these colors, but I don't have to. And I believe that my colors that I mix are actually more dramatic when I can mix them on paper anyway. So now, why do I like waterfalls? Well, as I mentioned, I like them because they offer this beautiful, interesting design, somewhat abstract in many ways, but they forever change as well with the lighting and so on. Here's my value sketch, by the way. Let me come back to this for a second. I just want to get this little out of the way, this little bit out of the way, why I like them. Here we have this very horizontal background, which is sort of static energy, potential energy at this point. And then as it comes around this bend here, and I think this is the key, this is the anchor, this is the armature of the composition, in my opinion, where it comes around and it goes from a static energy down into this very strong kinetic, and it almost explodes. And that's why I like waterfalls. I love to have both the two different energies within the composition working. And as you can see, this beautiful white water coming down and just splashing. So I'm going to introduce warm and cool. I'm going to introduce hard and soft edges. And we're going to try and turn this white piece of paper into something that might be close to this. But if I don't get it exactly, I'm not too worried about it because every time I've painted this waterfall, and not necessarily this perspective, I change, and I zoom in, I zoom out, and I go up and I go down, so I can do bird's eye view, which this is somewhat of a bird's eye view. I've done worm's eye view, and I just like to change it completely. So here's my dress rehearsal here. It's a little value sketch that I painted. So you can see the white, you can see the mid values, and you can see the dark values where they're showing up. And here's my scale that I use. And I've been using this scale for a long time. It's 1 to 9. 1 is white, 9 is black. And I always know that number 5 is mid-gray. So tone values to me is terribly important, and I'm sure with you as well. You understand the importance of getting the tonal value relationship within the composition right, so that the viewer then can understand, where the foreground is, where the midground is, where the background is, and the various shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my lightest hue, which happens to be Quinn Gold. I should point out that I work on the basis of 5 consistencies. And I teach this, the 5 consistencies. I have skim milk, which is a very diluted pigment to water ratio. Then I have 2%. I have homogenized buttermilk and then butter. And this is the lightest value in general. And then it gets gradually darker, 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 and darkest, okay, when I get to the butter consistency. And that might be to show some very dark trunks of trees or cracks in rocks or something of that nature. So I start off with my very first loose wash, which I like to put down. And if I had sky, and I'm not going to have any sky showing today because the background bank of this river is actually showing right up to the top. So there's no blue sky showing here. So I'm going to start with my Quinn Gold, and I'm just going to bring out a little bit of skim milk. And as I say, it's my most diluted pigment to water ratio that I like. And I know that the sunlight is hitting it, this shoreline back in here. So I want to put that up in here. So let's see. Anita, can you just acknowledge that you're hearing me okay? Maybe?
I am hearing you fine. If anyone else has any problems, I don't know if you find this, but sometimes the video is going slightly out of focus. If anyone else is in on that, I don't know if that's anything that you can do there, Doug, or if it's just the storm that we have coming.
I don't think you're going to see an awful lot right now because of the lighting I have. But if I turn my lights, the main lights off, you're going to see it darker. But I prefer to put the lights on because I think once this paint has dried, you're going to see the true color and value. But right now it's a little, I appreciate it. It can be quite a lot of glare there. So
okay. Just carry on. If somebody has an issue with the video or anything, then just put it in the chat and I'll try to monitor that.
Okay.
So go ahead, Doug. It's going great.
It could also be that the person's microphone speaker hasn't really been adjusted to a higher volume too. So I get that sometimes. So.
Right.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm placing in my Quinn Gold in the spots where I want to suggest there's some rocks that are peeking out through the water here. And so while I got my Quinn Gold in my brush, I just feel like I want to go and place the underpainting, put the underpainting of gold in.
Doug, I've got a question here. Actually,
sure.
I'll take 2 questions if you don't mind. First of all, are you working on the slope? At the bottom of your upper part of gold, it looks like there's a little puddle along the bottom edge. So right. You're not working flat then, is that correct?
I'm sorry, the last part of that question was about here?
Well, is your paper flat on the desk, or are you
the
working
paper
on the
is actually, it's about 2 inches higher here than it is here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I should have mentioned that. And I'm using 140-pound cold press today. It happens to be Strathmore that I'm using. I like Fabriano normally, but they were having problems getting it at Dessert during COVID. So I opted to go with Strathmore, and I quite like it actually. So
Did you soak your paper and stretch it?
no, I don't. I don't stretch my paper. I do get buckling, obviously, and it's taped on today. But no, I've never bothered because I paint a lot, and all I would be doing would be stretching paper, I think, most of the time. So now I've got this beautiful rock face here, which tends to look like it's sedimentary. So I'm going to come across and apply some of my Queen Gold, even here, because although I know it's going to get quite dark based on my value sketch, I still want to get that. I still want to get that yellow or golden underpainting in there. If I don't get it in now, it's hard to add it later. It just doesn't work unless you use a very opaque pigment, which I don't. I have mostly all very transparent pigments that I use. So, and I'm sure many of you do too. So, okay. Now I'm sort of painting around this area here because there are a lot of coniferous trees that are showing up. And how do I make coniferous? Well, Queen Gold, and I'm going to use some of my French ultramarine to create my green here. So I'm going to do that right now. And it's not a very toxic green. It's more of a muted green, which I like very much. So I'm going to just try and place it in probably as a mid value right now, because I do want to get it in. So I'm just coming back with a little bit more of the Queen Gold just to warm up that green, just a hint. So I'm just going to come in and suggest these pine trees, or I expect they're pine anyway. And again, this is essentially taking up part of it's the underpainting. It's still this loose wash stage, as I call it. So, and we have these trees coming over close to this rocky cliff here, but I don't want it to go in front. I want to suggest that the trees are in fact behind this cliff, which is in the foreground. So I'm just going to bring it to the edge here like that. Okay. So what I've got is, I'm just going to change the temperature a little bit. And you'll probably hear me talk about changing the temperature of the colors, whether it's a yellow or green, yellow, green, blue in that. I'm taking those analogous colors right now as an example, but it could be other analogous colors too. Friends on the color wheel, as I like to refer to them. Okay, great. So now I understand that right now it looks perhaps just a little faint until this thing actually dries, but I think you're going to see the colors very soon. So in order to get proper lighting, unfortunately, I had to go to a type of lighting that I actually have 6 gooseneck lights that are pointing not down, but pointing up to the ceiling. So what you're seeing is the reflected light from the white ceiling I have here in my computer room. And that's why I did this, is so that I don't get strong shadows, and it seems to be working quite well. Okay, so now I'm going to take out some of my burnt sienna. And again, it's going to be very skim milk, but I do want to bring in some warmth back here over this Queen Gold that I had placed in the background bank of the river. And I'm going to bring more of it into the foreground as well. This is going to get quite dark in here. There's going to be a lot of shadow, but I'm just placing the this burnt sienna now so that it warms up the foreground rock here. But I am going to introduce some cool notes as well in this rock because I like the play of warm and cool in a shape. So here's the top of it there. So that clean gold that I had put down earlier is still coming through quite nicely. So I'm happy with that. So, and I don't want to lose that. And now I'm going to come in and place a little bit more of the burnt sienna in here. Now you'll notice the way I use my brush strokes in this sort of very shallow but oblique pattern versus the vertical of the painting. And that again is to demonstrate the sedimentary rock formation that I have within the painting. So now there's lots of warmth over here too. So again, being in the foreground, I always work on the basis that warms advance and cools recede. So I'm just going to put in a bit of my my warm burnt sienna here. Very diluted skim milk. Okay. So what's important for me is to save the white, saving the white, because that is really going to bring the sparkle, I believe, to the composition. And I encourage people to, maybe novice watercolors, not to cover up every square inch of your paper because of that factor that it really does help to bring the sparkle to the painting. And I always feel that a fresh watercolor is going to need that sparkle. So I'm just going to put a little bit more burnt skin in here. So you can see for the most part, I'm staying in the 1 to 3 range of my tonal values. Right here, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm now going to think about changing my consistency to a more of a thicker consistency, such as homogenized maybe. And I'll go into my 4, 5, and 6 at this point in time. And when I do that, now you're going to start to see, as many of you know, you're going to start to see this abstract going to more representational. Okay, and that is just the way it works, So, what do I want? I want to mix up a gray now. Now you say, well, how do you mix gray? Well, I mix my grays in a number of ways, but I like using French ultramarine blue. Ooh, I really got a lot of here. I'm going to have to clean my brush and take some burnt sienna, and I neutralize the French ultramarine with the burnt sienna, and I'll get almost an indigo look. Although I do prefer French ultramarine and raw umber to make my indigo, but I am getting something close to it. So that's a cool gray that I've just mixed there. Okay. And I'm going to now start to think about putting some of that in to play with the underpainting a little bit. Now, it's your choice if you feel comfortable drying the paper at this point. I wouldn't be opposed to that because sometimes you don't want to disturb the underpainting now that you've put it in. So just give me probably 30 seconds to dry this just a little bit. You won't hear this, I'm sure. Okay, this is not bone dry, but it's probably dry enough for now. While I've mixed up my gray, I'm going to mix up some violet. So I'm going to take my carmine and my French ultramarine, and I can mix something very close to a Windsor violet with these two colors. So you don't have to buy Windsor violet. Sorry, Mr. Windsor Newton, but I just probably took some of your sales away. But because I do want to have the play of the yellow and the violet working so I can work my complementaries. Okay. Again, I'm looking at my laptop here and I can see that it's very light but now you're going to start to see some stronger darker values, mid values going in, and as I say, it's going to be moving more to a representational suggestion here. So I got a half hour to go, well, half hour in a bit. So let's see, what do I want? I'm going to go with a little darker burnt sienna first, though, before I put other things in, because I really want to start to suggest the contours of the background a little bit, and you're going to start to see the edge of the river back here. Again, this is the spot that is somewhat it's static energy working at this point because it's very horizontal. So there is movement, obviously, but it doesn't really explode until it gets down here. I'm going to put a little bit of gray back in here too, or even violet can work quite nicely to push back the background. And when it does that, of course, I'm doing a little bit of negative painting here, which will then, of course, bring forward the trees, the coniferous trees on the right side. Okay, so yeah. Just a little bit of gray to suggest shadow. Now, I didn't mention it, but I believe the sun, it feels like the sun is coming more right to left. And so that to me indicates that, or why the sunlight seems to be hitting this background bank. And also here, you see, it's dark. It's going to be dark over here, but light here. So anyway, now I'm going to just work myself down. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm just readjusting the edge of the water because I want it to be an interrupted shape. I don't want it to be a flat shape that might suggest that somebody put a concrete curb there. Well, I don't want that. This is the rugged interior of the Ottawa River system. So I really want it to have a rugged wilderness look anyway. Okay. Now, you'll notice I put these two little guys here, and that is important because that helps to finish the eye so that the viewer can see where the edge of the river is coming through. And it's just a couple little suggestions that I'm using. So, okay. Now I've got nice warmth here, so I'm going to take a little bit of my gray violet. And I'm just going to come in here and suggest a little bit of shadow on these rocks in here too. And again, I don't want to cover up all that underpainting because it's got that nice yellow and burnt sienna suggestion. So I'm just going to come in and also place a little bit of value in here too. This is I'm doing it on the left side of these rocks so that, again, I suggest that the sunlight is more right to left. Okay. So there's just a little bit of a random pattern. And I'm always looking for random pattern, but also size. Papa mama, baby, another baby, and so I encourage you to, or sorry, I don't encourage you. I encourage my the novice artists to try and think about using different locations for whether they're rocks or trees. Don't have them equidistant, don't have them the same size, but have them or a random pattern. Okay, so there's a little bit of negative space or negative painting that I'm putting in there to suggest the depth into the trees as well. So I'm just going to come back here and just add a little bit more of this darker suggestion right in here too. Okay. So even the addition of these sort of 5 and 6 values that I'm putting in, and I know they're going to dry lighter, but those 5 and 6 values really help to, again, move this composition from abstract into a representational suggestion. So I'm just going to come in here like that. Okay. And now I'm going to, running out of space here. You'll notice in my holding tray here, I've got bathtub caulking that I'm using to separate the colors. But sometimes if I use too many colors or have too many mixed up, then I sort of run out of space where to use them. So I want to make a bit of a warmer suggestion of burnt sienna here too. So I'm just going to come in and add my carmine and my burnt sienna. So I'm losing that reddishness a little bit. So the chroma is not as intense for the carmine by just cutting it with a little burnt sienna. Because I do want to suggest some warmth in a few locations. For instance, perhaps right in here for these foreground rocks. So I didn't feel like the burnt sienna alone gave me that reddishness that I'm looking for. So, and I'm improvising a little bit as to how I want to put in the shadows of the rock, the cracks of the rock, etc. So, but I try and be as spontaneous as possible. But you're going to see that white water just jump near the end when I can go in and place another glaze over top of these rocks here. And that's my intention. And I'm going to take some of that as well. And I want to bring it in over into the this part of the rock as well. So. I'm saving a few spots because I really want to put some cool purple or violet, whichever you prefer, that's same. But in here too. So yeah, I see a nice note right here. There's a strong reddish note right in here in my photo reference. So I think I like to bring that in there as well. Okay. All right. I'm just looking at my screen now to see where I want to go next. And I think it's time to bring some cool notes in. So I'm going to take my French Ultra again, and I'll just cut it with a little bit of burnt sienna, just to, again, neutralize that blue to a gray blue. Okay. And now I'm going to start to place a little bit of shadow in these rocks as well. I want you to also know one thing about, I talk about the horizontals that are strong back here. Down in the midground and foreground, we're starting to get these oblique shapes, you see. And those oblique shapes of the rock echo what's happening in the water too. So you get that movement, you get that very strong suggestion of a dynamic composition, a very moving composition. So Okay, now down in here is where it gets really quite dark. And I kind of like this because it feels like the whole bank has been undercut maybe over time. Maybe storms or whatever have created that. So I'm just going to mix up a little thicker, maybe a homogenized consistency of this blue-gray. And I'm going to have a few notes peeking through, a few light notes also coming through here. Yeah. Now you're starting to, again, well, you're going to see it when it dries a lot much better, as I said earlier. But you're now starting to see how how this rock face is really setting up to be very dynamic. I'm going to take a bit of this. I had mixed up this purple here, so I'm going to use some of it too. There is going to be a very strong, extreme contrast of values right down in here. I'm going to have number 1 value, but I'm also going to have 8 and 9 values working, which will really help to bring the viewer perhaps here to start the voyage into the painting and then coming around and ending maybe up in here somewhere. So I'm just going to suggest maybe a little bit of splashing water here, and I can enhance that. If I find that this looks a little bit too weak, I can come in later and suggest maybe some splashing. I've even been known to spray a little gouache on the water to give it a feel that it's spraying up. Okay, I'm just going to take a little bit more of this violet because I quite like what's happening here. I've got gray, but I've also got a little violet working here, and that might look to be just a subtle change, but. I think subconsciously we can pick out those temperature changes that are not harsh. They're more of a soft transition from one color or one temperature into another. Okay. And I'm now going to leave that. And I'm going to, well, I shouldn't say only that side of it, but now I'm going to come over here because I do want to suggest some more of the darks on this side as well. So I'm going to use a little bit of the gray, French Ultra, Burnt Sienna. And I'm just going to come in and I just want to sort of give a little bit of harmony and balance to this composition because I found it was weighted too much to the right. So we just want to do something over here to give it a little bit more balance. I'm not into symmetry. I don't look for symmetry, but I do look for, excuse me, I do look for balance within my compositions. So I've got the underpainting is still coming through, the yellow, the queen gold that I put down first, and now I'm putting in these darker notes just so that I can get these stronger contrasts. And what does that do? Well, it makes the water that much more important, obviously. So now, before I go any further, here's another little tool I like using, and it's just a regular credit card, but this one happens to be a Cocoa card. But when it comes to rocks, I really like to, when it's at the right wetness or dryness, I like to come across and just reveal a bit of the underpainting and suggest a little bit of texture. And so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so create that little bit of texture to enhance the look of the painting. And I can do something similar over here, but I got to be careful because I don't want to drive one color into another and then create mud. So I guess a couple of you know how to make mud. That's one thing I learned in the early going. Now, I've been using a 1.5-inch flat brush all this time, and I'm going to give it a break because I want to pull out a smaller brush, which is my mop brush, which is a number 4. It's a Da Vinci. I've had it a long time. It's not totally, it's a stable synthetic, but I really enjoy this one. So that's why I'm using it now. Where did I go with? I'll bring this up. Okay, so now what I can do is go back because I want to now start to darken this area here. Okay, because my value sketch said it's got to probably be generally in the 7, 8, 9 value. And there will be a few little light notes coming through, but for the most part, it's going to be quite dark. So I'm going to use a little bit of dark green again, from Ultra Queen Gold. And if need be, I can add a little bit of my carmine to that, and I'll get a strong black as well. So here we go. Let's bring in some of these dark suggestions here to, again, just to, it's a bit of negative painting again, but I want to, suggest these sweeping branches of boughs of these trees here. So. And they actually come up a little bit higher too, right up in here. So. This is, these are very abstract shapes as well, obviously. So. But you can see my brush stroke is somewhat dancing, and I try to be as spontaneous as I can. Okay, there's lots of green over here too, just in front. I'm going to put a little bit of maybe a few boughs over here too. I'm just going to close off this corner up here a little bit too, because I like to create, if I can, a bit of edge block that holds the viewer's eye close to the sweet spot of the painting, which to me is in here. If you divide your paper in thirds, of course, you get that sweet spot rectangle forming. In this case, more in portrait. But, if you did it in landscape, of course, it's still there, and it's quite a strong effect here. So, yeah. Now I'm going to put in some very dark trunks of trees here too, which will tie a lot of these shapes together. But right now, I just want to get these mid to dark values in for these trees, these carnivorous. I always stress the importance of underpainting, because I always feel that if it's like building a house, if you don't have a good foundation, the rest of the house is probably going to be compromised. And I feel the same way about the underpainting. If you don't have a good underpainting, you're probably going to start off with a slightly weaker opportunity for success. So anyway, okay. So there's a lot of little abstract going on in there. So I'm just going to go a little darker. Now I'm actually going to take my green, which I mixed. Okay, here's the green. And now I'm going to add some of my carmine to it so I can get this almost a black. And quite frankly, those two colors do make a decent black. So I'm just going to get it, because I want to get it just a little darker down right in here along this edge here. And Because that seems to be where it's really, the sun just can't get to it down in here. So, and there's going to be a tree here by the look of it. I've left that tree just a little bit of right of center. I didn't want to have it dead center because I don't want it to cut the painting in half. But okay, now I'm going to come back with this almost a black, and I'm going to just reinforce some of these this sedimentary rock here, these oblique shadows. So this is still damp down here, but that's okay. I'm getting a little bit of soft edge working, so I can live with that. But again, these are so these oblique lines really do, in my opinion, they do add to the mood of the painting, and I'm just going to go a little darker in here too.
Hi, Doug. I'm going to interrupt you just for a minute.
Sure.
It is now 10 to 10, and I said I would let you know. And for
Okay.
anyone who has anything they do have to, if you have to leave at 10 o'clock, it's okay. This is being recorded, and continue on.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we're getting there. Obviously, this water, I'm going to add some value to it, some blues, etc., maybe even a hint of green. But there's probably going to be a not a lot more to do after I get this down in here. I just want to go a little darker right in here. I don't want too many diamonds occurring down in here, because this is where the this light just can't seem to get what. So, but I think you're now starting to see this this very dynamic shape here with the water, which I'm you know, you have to look at it every once in a while and stand back and see. I have the luxury of being able to see my painting through my laptop, and it pushes it back so that I can see, you know, the gestalt of the painting, how it's setting up, and you know, am I achieving the tone values right, and so on. So I'm just going to come in here just with a little bit more of the darks right in here. There's one thing I like doing, and I think it's just me more than anything, but because I don't think anybody ever taught me this, but I like to mute my corners of my, I don't like a lot of activity. I do have activity here, but I'm going to mute that a bit, because hard exits, again, are something that I try and avoid. Now, you've got a hard exit right here. You see the value change between the water and the rock here. That will command a lot of attention, and I don't want people to dwell there. I want them to be coming up here. I want the viewer to come up here. So I'll probably soften this edge so that becomes a not a hard exit, but a softer exit. Okay. I'm just going to change that a little bit too. Okay. Now I've got to come back with just a little bit more value, because as this dries, I see that you know, as it dries, there's just areas that need to be glazed over a little bit. So, and Edgar Whitney, who I quote all the time, said, "If the tonal values look right when they're wet, then they're wrong." And I don't think I could have said it any better. You know? So you have to sit back when your painting is completely dry and decide, is it okay? Does it need another glaze? Yeah, I like that better. I like that, the way that is now coming across. I'm just going to add a little bit of value right in here, just to break that up just a bit. But I do like the light coming off of that just a little better. And let me take a bit more right in here too. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to the background and just put in a few more dark notes right along here, along the river's edge, right here. And so you see, they dried so much lighter, but I know you know that. So again, I'm preaching to the choir here. So yeah, I like that a little better. Okay, now I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit some darker values, sort of in the 6, 7, 8, even 9 value on some of these rocks here, because they need to have that suggestion that they're that of their form. You know, they can't look flat looking. They got to look like they've got either a geometric shape to them or whatever. So okay. This is a good brush too for calligraphy. I really like it because it's versatile, and that's why I've gone into it this way. I'm just going to take a bit of carmine again, a little bit of burnt sienna, and from that muted red that I had earlier, and I'm going to put some right up in here because I want to just have these red notes appearing in a few spots throughout the painting to bring unity to the painting as well. Now they may not show up all that strongly right now, but I think they'll appear in the final. Excuse me. Okay. Now I'm going to take a number 9 value, fairly thick. It'll probably be a homogenized to a buttermilk consistency. And I'm going to mix it right here. It should be an 8 or 9 value for sure. That's what I'm looking for. So again, my blue, my red, and my burnt sienna to cut the purple, to neutralize the purple. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to suggest these trees. And I've got a very strong tree right here, which is currently white, but it's soon going to be number 9 value. Okay. And it's going to be a papa tree, so I'm just going to make it just a little bigger than the other ones. And I'm going to have another one sort of in here somewhere, and it's going to be peeking through every once in a while as well. And I got another one over here, just a little further away, and there'll be probably 2 or 3 peeking out from the shadows here as well. Okay. Now I don't want to end that one there because that one, I want them to be different. Now there's not an awful lot going on over here, but I could suggest some branches coming over, but I'm not sure I want to do that. So I think I'll just come in and I'm going to put a little bit of shadow right in here though, because I like to break that up just a bit more. This is the rock facing right there. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to take some of this again, and I'm going to just come down here and create some more darks here because it is getting a little lighter. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can. Okay. A little bit right in here. And I'm going to put a few suggestions of a vertical crack as well, just to, I'm not going to do it back there, but just a few little cracks there to give it a suggestion that it's coming forward, this rock face. which is really what I want it to do anyway. Okay. I'll just do a little bit of negative painting in here too. Okay. Now I have a few little diamonds in here. I don't know if you can see them. That one there looks a little odd, so I'm gonna, I call these little areas of the paper that have not been touched with pigment or water, I call them the white diamonds. And I do like them, but I don't like them too far to the edge of the paper. I like them more concentrated, again, in the sweet spot of the painting, because those little white diamonds do attract the attention of the viewer quite nicely. So, okay, I'm just finding this just a little bit not dark enough right in here. So I'm just going to add a little bit more right in here. Okay. And I'm going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna now. And I'm going to add it right in here because I want to warm this rock up just a little bit right in here. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to mix up some blue. So I'm going to take some of these grays out and clean up my tray here a little bit so that I can mix up some nice pure chroma of blue. I don't want it to be contaminated with another color like burnt sienna or anything like that. So let me just do this again. Okay, so I got two triangles that I can now mix up in my brush there. So I'm going to take some of my pure French ultramarine blue, which has been my warm blue, and I'm going to now start to suggest some streams of mid-value, which again is the water moving itself towards the edge. But it's a very horizontal, as you can see, it's very horizontal suggestion. And there will be a few little darks in here too, because I see them, but I'm just going to now start to bend a little bit and to suggest it's now starting to fall. Gravity is allowing it to now come forward. Okay. But up here, it's very horizontal. Okay. And I'm going to, before that blue is completely dry, I'm just going to take a little bit of Queen Gold in my brush, not a lot. And I'm just going to sort of allow a little bit of maybe reflection of a little bit of green showing up in a few spots as well. So you get a nice little movement of temperature within the water too. And I'm just going to come back in here too. Okay. Now I'm going to come back with, now it's got a little bit of Queen Gold in that, but now I'm going to come down here because I want to suggest that the water going over these areas here is rather shallow, okay? So it's going to take on a sort of a mid-gray value right in here too, because I see it happening. So, and right in here too. So now we're starting to see this energy just starting to really take hold and down in here. So, and I'm just using some very, very small little brush strokes here because I want that suggestion that it's churning, that the water's churning as it's coming down now. But I do want to save lots of white up in here too. Now over here, there's a little suggestion as the water's coming off the bank over here. There's a suggestion that it's falling, it's cascading just about right in here. Not so much there. I got to change that. I want to take that out and put it down in here. Because I can put it right in here too. So I'm just suggesting these sort of lines of water that are coming over the rocks, fit in a very shallow way for the most part. I'm adding just a little queen gold just to give it a little excitement, not just a steady diet of that gray blue, but adding a little bit of queen gold to it will help to, I think, to bring a little bit more of a excitement to the color. Yeah. I'm just going to soften that up a little bit. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to remember I said I don't like hard exits. Well, here's a hard exit down here. So I'm going to soften it by just putting in a little hint of not even one, it's maybe 1.5 value, if you will. It's somewhere between a 1 and a 2 value down in here. And I'm going to soften this edge down here. I'm just going to take my damp brush and I'm going to soften the edge as it's leaving the paper. And I'm putting in a few little more suggestions than perhaps what the photo reference reveals to me, but nevertheless, I think it should help to give you the feeling of power, movement. I'm looking for my little Kobo card that I used earlier, but I can't find it. So I'm going to use this other card, which happens to be a Tim Hortons card. Gift card. Hope I used all the, and I'm just going to scrape out just a few little highlights of maybe the trunks of the trees here, just to, I may have to go back and put that one in there. So you can see how damp this is. Even now, it's still a little damp. So I'll just maybe reveal a little bit of okay, I'm going to probably splatter it a little bit, and then I'm going to put a mat on it, and then we're done.
Wow.
Okay, I see one more hard exit that is showing up, and it's right over here. So I'm just going to soften this rock right in here a little bit, and I'll just add a few little dots here to suggest that as it's hitting this this rock here, it's spraying up a little bit. Now I've got my I've got a little bit of gouache here, so I know that the CSPWC doesn't, they sort of frown on gouache to a point. They'll allow you 10% of body color, but I'm just going to give it a little spray down in here. I'll try not to make it 10%. I always, my question was, and I was a judge one year, a number of years ago for CSP Open Water. And as I was telling Anita, we did have one painting that we had to disqualify because there was just too much gouache in it. And but I always said, who's the gouache police that's going to say whether there's 10% or 8% or 9% or whatever. But anyway, we know that that's a rule and we try to abide by that. So, okay, I'm going to take my mat now and put my mat on, and hopefully we've now turned a white piece of paper into a finished painting. That doesn't mean to say I'm done. Okay. What it means to say is I'm done for now with these eyes. I want to look at it later with fresh eyes and decide, okay, am I happy with the overall tonal value of the background? And I may not be. I may want to glaze something very, just a little darker, maybe a little cooler too, so that it brings these trees forward. And when the painting is completely dry, that's exactly what I tend to do. I even look at it the next day, the next morning, and I can then pick out, oh, I got a hard edge here that's really taking my eye down here where I don't want to be. So I may want to soften it. So it's not always adding. Sometimes it's take away. But again, you guys know that. I feel so uncomfortable talking to people like I normally do in my workshops, because a lot of the people that take my workshops are novice, and I try to bring them along very gently because it's such a demanding watercolor, or is so demanding in the early stages, as you know. You can turn people off so quickly. And I want them to enjoy the spontaneity of watercolor and what it can do for us. It's so portable, as you know. So anyway, are there any questions that I can answer or comments? Or
I would like to comment on a few things. I love the, I would say, intellectual way you approach the composition. And yeah, sometimes we don't put it into words, but you were able to put it into words as you saw the horizontal and then gradually the descent down into the falls. The other thing I'm particularly interested in is how well you used the palette of 3, or actually 4. I used to use just 3 or 4 colors, and then I got kind of like a kid in a candy shop, and I love colors, so I would get more colors. But your painting is full of color. It's full of warms and cools and a full range of dynamics. And I think you did a marvelous job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I heard you fine, but I didn't know who was making the comment. So
it's Elizabeth Gilbert.
Thank you, Elizabeth, very much. I appreciate that. I'm not sure I can pull up the chats. Well, there's comments that I see, and so I appreciate the all of the comments, and I will look at them.
Doug, I can tell you about the chats. This is from Anne Valentin.
Right.
I think maybe I just lost that. Oh, no, she goes, I'm a beginner who's fascinated to follow on with your thinking and process. So you are not talking down to me, at least. I very much appreciate your demo. You know, Doug, I think it doesn't matter where anybody is in their art. You know, this was such a beautiful demo, and I think everyone got something out of it. I think it's fascinating. And it's from Tina Price. I appreciate the why you chose this scene. Motivation is key.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Linda Kemp wrote, thank you for putting this together. Marvelous demo. And Len Hughes said, many thanks, Doug. Marvelous demo. Wonderful, fresh, clean colors. Love you, thank you. That's Hilda Greason. Linda Trowell, really enjoyed it. Thanks, Doug and Anita. Let's see. Some people had to leave. They have other obligations. Let's see.
They'll
Bev
get,
Morgan, yeah, Bev Morgan was, your spontaneous approach reminds me of plein air painting. Thank you, Doug, for a great demo.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bev. Bev, I guess there's two Bev Morgans I know now. There's a Bev Morgan in Etobicoke
That's
that
right.
I've known for a number of years. So yeah, very good.
This is Bev Morgan from Hanover.
Oh, okay, good.
I am now going to stop the recording. If you're finished with the demo, Doug, I'll just stop the recording, but we can still talk and people will maybe be freer to speak then.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
What a beautiful painting and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.